All right, welcome everyone to the Good Times Hour. I'm here with Mr. B and someone you might have heard of. His name is Dave Dunipace.
In the yurt. This is incredible.
Yeah, we're in the Yurt Village, which was an addition to the championship this year. And I know Dave, you have been at several of these. You've played in a lot of them. You didn't come for a while, but last year had to have been really surprising to see all the changes, and then this year it's even a little bit more. What do you think about all of this?
It's I came last year and it was pretty amazing. With transformation was a lot. The village here I think is the big deal that changed, but the amount of people watching,
that's definitely changed.
The crowd, the media, it's all like holy mackerel. It sure did. It did. Got amplified. The reason why I wasn't here for several years is I was incapacitated. I had a major shoulder reconstruction.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, I got 5 screws in my right shoulder, and the only tendon that wasn't messed up, they cut it anyway to get to the others. So that was fun.
And what caused all that? Was that a major injury or just lifetime of use, or
lifetime abuse?
Lifetime abuse.
Probably. I had crashed.
Ultimate injury.
No, probably crashing on my mountain bike too many times. I know that completely destroyed my left shoulder. They couldn't do anything with that. But
I got a nice click in this one from my mountain bike too.
Oh yeah, well, I still mountain bike, but
yeah,
I don't. I do it on trails, not on
no air
single track anymore. That's a little too crazy for me at my age. Yeah.
How old are you these days?
These days I are 74.
74,
yeah.
Right on.
So I have a question. Well, first of all, happy 40th anniversary. I think this is amazing. What was the actual official inset date for Innova?
When was the actual, which date?
The start of Innova. Like, do you remember the date?
The company date was it was 1983 and March of 83, I think, but the inception was probably December of 82. Harold and I met to play disc golf at La Mirada, as we did a lot. I was his mentor and coach. And I had an invention, and I was kind of whining to Harold that I couldn't get anybody to back my invention. Hedrick wouldn't even talk to me. And the 3 other guys that had enough money, I suppose, or means to do it, one of them wasn't interested. Dan Mangoni was another one. He was the guy that sold all the discs. And he said, and maybe rightly so, he said, hi, Sam. He said it was too much of a change, that disc golf wasn't ready for it. And, he wasn't that far off because of what happened when we first came out with the Eagle and the Arrow. There was a lot of pushback and whining and stuff like that when we did that. And the other guy was Snapper Pearson that I went to, and he didn't say no, but he was thinking about it and whatever. He actually saw one of the models fly too.
Okay. And so, still he was hemming and hawing.
Pardon?
Still he was hemming and hawing. He was still a little trepidation.
On the fence.
Well, it might have been because of what Mangoni was saying. It was too much of a leap.
Okay.
But so I'm whining to Harold about this, and he says, without seeing the model or anything, he said, "Oh, I'll back you," just like that. He had a trust. It was not a big amount at the time, but it was a trust, and it turned out to be not enough. So his older brother, Charlie, got in on it also. And so it was like $18,000 to build a mold and shoot a first run, a garage operation, basically.
Okay.
And so around April, well, we got Tim Selinsky to be the operations guy, or the office guy, and we were renting an office, which is about the size of this yurt here. Wasn't big, and I designed a mold, and the guy that made the mold messed it up. Whoa!
Our quiet sign just went down.
Yeah,
Loudly.
wasn't quiet.
It definitely was not quiet.
So he messed up the thing, and then tried to pretend like he didn't mess it up, and he did. He was a slime ball. But I made him do what he was supposed to do, and then he messed that up, and then I made him correct it. And the finishing disc was the arrow. One of the steps was the eagle. So
okay.
the first disc was only like 2 of them or something like that. Was a combination of the both of them. So, but when we test flew the eagle, we knew, okay, this is something that a lot of golfers would like to have. And so in order to keep the business running, we made a run of, let's see, what was it? It was, I think it was 3,000 of orange speckled eagles. I think generally in the high 60s and some in the 70s. It was 180 gram maximum.
Oh, okay. That was going to be my next question.
That weight limit had just started.
There was no weight limits for a long time, correct?
Yeah, but it actually was no weight limits right then. It started right after that. For some reason, I think it was Stork. He used the arrow as the ground zero for 180, and that made 8.3 grams per centimeter. Hedrick wanted it to be, 5 point something or whatever, and the maximum weight was 160 something or what. Anyway, everybody rebelled. They didn't want to do that, so they were using 250 gram discs.
Yeah, Craig Levy used to tell me stories about 252 gram super puppy that he used to love, and he threw it forever and ever. He told me, and
yeah,
and I'm just like, well, so how do you? I guess you put more filler into that to catch that weight and make it heavier.
Yeah, well, the filler, I guess it was phosphorescence at that time, and then it got changed to other, barium or whatever it is that we use. It's heavier than the phosphorescence. You can use less of it, but Jan Sobel of Destiny Discs or whatever else he called his company at the time was basically responsible for the really heavy discs. 9-inch vector, 9.25-inch vector, the puppy, the super puppy. I think that was it. He had a couple others that didn't matter, right? But those four did matter. And then Hedrick somehow came up with a puppy version afterwards. I don't know how that worked out, or whether it sold to him or whatever it was, but he had a couple different puppy versions. But by the time he had that, Sobel had a super puppy, which was superior to the puppy.
Okay.
I helped design the puppy. I was working with Sobel a little bit, but very minor. He was one of the guys that I went to for backing. He said he didn't want any more partners. So, okay. I went my way.
Seems like it worked out pretty good. I mean, I'm sure that it was contentious at the time, but that.
No, there was no. It wasn't contentious.
Well, I guess I don't mean it like that. I mean, it was probably taxing, mentally. Just like, okay, I got this. I'm ready to. I'm here, and I'm at the plate, and there's nobody pitching.
Yeah. It's like, wow, dudes, this is going to change disc golf. This is going to elevate it. This is going to take it from a game, which I like, Frisbee golf.
Sure. Right.
Really like it. Harold liked it. We all liked it, Frisbee golf. But we envision a sport, a dynamic sport, because you're not going to get athletes interested in frisbee golf. They're going to look at that and go, that's nice, but I'm not wearing tie-dye or eating granola or anything like that. So this is not for me. But once we started coming out with our discs that are flying, 400 whatever feet at the time, that started getting their interest, started getting their attention.
Well, especially when golfers showed up with those and they were still using a midnight flyer or even a super pro or something like that. And you're just outpacing them probably by what, at least a third or more in the distance.
Yeah, it was pretty stark. So unlike Ultimate, they don't want the best disc. They want a disc. They want the same disc.
Or the same thing over and over.
The same piece of crap that everybody else plays with is what they want. They don't want the best disc. We had our Ultimate disc, the IML or whatever it is. It was a professional organization. They had our disc.
Oh, yeah, right.
And the complaint was, this thing goes where you throw it.
Well, who wants that?
Yeah. And these,
why point a car where you want to drive it?
Oh my God. And these guys, so self-righteously saying this kind of stuff had no idea the history of Ultimate. The original Ultimate, the original one was a 155 Master or something like that, but they switched to the 80 mode, right? And in my opinion, the 80 mode was the best Ultimate disc ever, even including ours. It was the best Ultimate disc ever. But after a while, A, B, C, D, E, revisions of the 80 mode, they're selling so many of them, the mold was wearing out. They had to retool. And the 80E was, terrible. And that allowed Discraft to come in with their Ultrastar, which was a pretty good disc. It was stable, right? But, and then Whammo was supporting Ultimate, and then, Whammo got bought by Kransco, and, Jesus, I don't even know how many hands it changed, but, and then Discraft started supporting, it basically owns Ultimate.
Yeah.
But that disc that they had is not the same disc they have now.
Interesting.
The disc they have now is more like the 80E.
Oh.
In my opinion, it's a bad disc. It's flippy. You can't play with it in the wind very well. It's like, but the Ultimate players for so many years have been playing with that. That's what they're used to. That's what they expect in the flight thing. So they don't want to throw a disc that goes where you freaking throw it.
Well, who'd have thought it? Why would you want to do that, right?
To me, that just never worked for me. Anyway.
So, Dave, I want to ask you, just to take it back a step. How did you guys all meet? Did you I know you said that you were Harold's kind of mentor, especially in distance. Harold was really trying to get his distance up. And back in the day, you were the distance champion. How did you meet Ski?
Well, we met at a world tournament, a Frisbee tournament in Irvine, California. They were there mainly for the DDC. They were a high-level DDC couple, pair, whatever. And I didn't play DDC at the time, so I didn't know them through anything, actually. I played 3 events, distance, MTA, maximum time aloft, and what the hell was the other one?
Accuracy, so I played.
Oh, disc golf. Hello. So I was like top 5 in all 3 of those. And I think I finished, my best finish in the worlds with just those 3 events was 3rd. I finished 3rd in the world to John Kirkland and Zimmerman and those guys, which had a lot more events and were very good at freestyle and all the rest of the stuff that I never did. Anyway, so we're in Irvine, and they put us up, in the dorms there, and fed us in the cafeteria and stuff like that. So there was a pickup game, a 3-on-3 basketball game that the Duvals entered in. They needed a third. It was Charlie and Harold who were playing, wanted to play against the Gym Rats, who won every year.
Okay.
Tom Kennedy was one of them. I can't quite remember the name of the other two, but Kennedy and the other guard, so to speak, they were really good shooters. And then they had a college center from Minnesota or something like that. Dick Sandus was his name. He's like 6'4" or something like that. And that was their team. And the Duvals needed a center. And I was like 6'4", whatever, 6'3" and a half. But that's not why they got me. They saw me in the line eating 5 hamburgers. So they go, wow, let's get that guy. He can eat 5 hamburgers. He's not a vegetarian. That's what they say anyway. They had no idea if I could even play basketball. Well, it turned out I was a pretty high level basketball player. Okay, I played in the military and I played in college. I was a college captain at the college I played, and I was also a gym rat after that. So it was like, okay, sounds like fun. And anyway, so we played together and beat the crap out of those guys. And
Nice.
The Duvals weren't even basketball players. They were volleyball players, and they could jump. They were athletes, right?
Okay.
Both of them were real strong athletes. Not that tall, 6 foot or whatever.
I was going to ask, is Charlie built similar to Harold?
Say again?
Is he Charlie built similar to Harold, similar height?
Yeah, they're both real, solid, got tree trunk legs,
Yeah.
But they could jump too from volleyball, I guess. They learned how to jump. They weren't shooters or anything like that, but we had a very simple plan, play defense real tight on these guys. Don't let them get anything off for free. And, you could do that if you're an athlete,
Right.
If you're not, you can't keep up, but they could do that. And then and rebound. That was the thing. We get every rebound. That was the plan.
That
right?
makes the difference.
On offense, it's if you have an open shot, throw the ball up. Doesn't matter if you make it. We're going to chase it and rebound it and keep putting it up till it goes in the hoop. And that's the way we did it. I mean, I could have took over the game and won, by myself, but that wouldn't have been any fun.
That's interesting.
I love it.
But it's really interesting too, because like you look at this event, and we've been talking to a lot of folks that are coming from your same area, because we're trying to tell stories and especially stories that a lot of the younger players don't know. And one of the recurring themes is a lot of those events in the 70s and early 80s, they had multiple events, and
it was fun.
It's kind of those things have kind of fallen to the wayside, and we've streamlined down to one or two events in an event, and sometimes even a random putting event, and really got no attention this week because it wasn't necessarily right in front of the players' faces, I guess, or I'm not sure. But it's kind of strange how it used to always be multifaceted, and now it's kind of come down to one or two facets.
That original Whammo Frisbee stuff, I mean, Ed Hedrick has to be given credit for that. Absolutely. The IFA and getting Frisbee and stuff on television and the Rose Bowl and stuff like that. I had the distance finals in the Rose Bowl with 50,000 people. And this is like in 1978 or something like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was, it was like, wow, and then although it didn't work out, there was the $50,000 golf tournament in Huntington Beach. And I think that was in, I don't know, 1980 or something.
79.
79?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool, but we're supposed to be on television, all this kind of stuff, but there was some kind of gas crisis where ABC couldn't do it for some reason. The gas lines were like miles long or whatever.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and so that kind of fell through, but the tournament still happened.
So you had to qualify for that $50,000 tournament.
Well, yeah. First, you paid an entry fee to try to qualify, and then if you qualified, you had to pay another fee to play in the finals, and you had to join what is it called?
IFA?
The DGA.
Oh, okay.
Disc Golf Association. It came the PDGA later, I believe. So that's when a lot of us joined. That's when I joined.
Okay.
You could choose whatever number you wanted at the time, and they were 3-digit numbers. I think the lowest numbers were available were in the 600s or something like that. I chose my number because I could remember it.
What is your number?
987. It was easy to remember.
Oh, there you go, 987.
Yeah, I could have chose 999 or whatever, but anyway, I chose 987, and I remember it to this day.
Nice. And so this is something that's become a recurring theme with a lot of the folks we've talked about or talked to, is that there's a high percentage, and we haven't been keeping track, but almost everybody has a story of, I could have had a better number if I had. Do you fall into that category, or was it just the right time and that was when there was no other thoughts of doing it before that? Or
I don't fall into the category of I could have had a better number, but I could have had a lower number. But
just because you'd have
I think mine is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's cool. That's and that's one of the neat things that we've interviewed about 45 people so far, and everybody does have a different story with it. Cheryl Newland picked her 76 because it was 1976. But then she didn't get the T-shirt, so she harassed Ed until he gave her one. You know what I mean? Because everybody's got a different story.
Well, you're just the third person who's chosen their number, at least that we talked to. John Kirkland, he took 100. Cheryl, and you. Those are the only 3 instances of people actually saying, "I want that number." Most other people were like, "I could have had a lower number if I only had that $15, or if only Ed had floated me on that."
I didn't care. A lot of guys joined with the first World Championships, I believe.
Yeah.
And that number was around 2000.
Oh,
Sam is one of those guys. There's a whole bunch of guys that had numbers close to 2030, 2080, whatever it is. That was a big surge of numbers that they wanted to play in the World Championships. You had to be a PDGA member or DGA member. Maybe it was PDGA at that time. I don't know. I have the feeling that it turned into the PDGA in 1983 at Alabama, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Yeah, that's another thing that we've seen that common thread too, where, oh yeah, well I was playing the wide open, and the first year they had the wide open, a bunch of people were telling us, and I think those guys are in like the 3,500 range or something like that. It was like Duffy Cardiff and a few of those other guys, those old school players.
Yeah,
it's like 20 AC.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we got to thank Hedrick for in the beginning. Later on, no, not at all. But in the beginning, basically standardizing the target, coming out with a target, the basket target. The first one was terrible, and they evolved over time and got better. But the fact that they were there was a real good thing. Rule book. That was another thing. The IFA thing came up with a rule book. I think Hedrick was part of the team that wrote those rules. Basically, treating Frisbee and disc golf as a sport. That was a big thing. The organization, the PDGA at all, or the DGA, whatever. That was a good thing too. As far as past that, yeah, he wasn't as helpful as he was in the beginning. It was extremely valuable in the genesis of disc golf.
So Dave, I want to ask you a question. Since you were playing a lot back then, one of the things that has stood out to me when looking at the research and looking at the database is you've got the World Flying Disc Championships in Santa Cruz and the IFA World Frisbee Championships at the time. Eventually, the PDJ comes out with their World Championships. Was one more prestigious or more important than the other for you as players?
Not at that time. You know, I was the World Flying Disc champion, a disc golf champion that was held in Santa Cruz. I think that was in,
1980.
80?
Yep.
Yeah, 1980. And, you know, Tom Schott ran that. Right. So, you know, that was at the Santa Cruz campus, too, the campus course, which was really fun. That was
you see Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
The banana slugs.
The banana slugs.
Yeah.
Right. So that was fun. I played that for like, I don't know, 3 years or 4 years, something like that. And won it the 1 year. We had the other events too, just like the WIF did. Same thing, you know, the events. And it wasn't any more or less prestigious than the other one. You know, it was about the same, but it folded. I guess Tom Schott couldn't make a go of it after that, but he got us on television too, NBC and stuff like that before it folded. So it was a pretty big deal at the time. But, you know, historically, nobody remembers that. You know, that's it. You know, you're done.
Well, but that again, we've interviewed, you know, several people, including Harold, and you know, this is definitely something that they've discussed as well. So that's one thing that's really interesting. Like I said, you know, I've heard Greg Leva mention all these names whenever I was coming up as a player. You know, he was in my area there in Arlington, and you know, so many of the names that you mentioned just in our conversation before we started, and then, you know, different people that were influential in supporting you and not supporting you coming up in that, and it's interesting that all those names just continue to pop up. Very cool.
Now, speaking about names, I realize
I need a timeout here.
Okay,
I gotta pee.
Okay,
I'm old.
that's all right.
And I got a unit right over here. So
All right, cool. We'll just chat a little bit while you're gone.
but we won't say anything bad about you, I promise.
He's been looking out for you forever, right? Or something. Well, so yeah, you think? All right. Well, we are here in the Yurt Village, and Dave is taking a bathroom break. He's coming back though, Sam. He's taking a bathroom break.
Okay. Everything good?
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
All right. No profanity.
No, he has
Surprisingly, no.
He has the ability to just blurt shit out from time to time. Trust both of your judgments.
No blurting in the yurt, I
All right.
promise.
No blurting in the air. Got a pretty convincing sign.
That's a very
out here.
Right on.
We got to get a picture of that
Yeah,
one.
you do.
Quiet. There's a quiet, please. Recording in progress.
Yeah.
It's an amazing relationship, Sam and Dave. You guys are the original soul duo, that's for sure. This is just a real privilege to be able to sit down with Dave.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, we're hopefully I got another question that I want to ask him when he comes back, and hopefully can shed some light on a lot of folks talk about all the different molds of one particular disc, and I want to take advantage of this opportunity to explain it once and for all that there's not a lot of different molds for all these different discs. You know, that there's different parts, but
I was going to ask him about.
Look at this guy.
For the names. I was going to ask him about the test pilots.
Oh yeah, for sure. We got to ask about that. No question about it.
Because I watched the Japan Open footage. By the way, Sam, that was a great video that you and Jeff Manis put together on the JO 23.
Hey man, Jeff does all that. I'm just video fodder.
He did a great job.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Quality.
And the mayor
fodder.
of Sakai City was emotional about that. Yeah, he sent us along, but
That's awesome.
That's pretty amazing.
yeah, we forged partnerships for the next year and beyond. So all good stuff. Enjoy, guys.
So just before we've had a little pause there. One of the questions, so I was just talking to Sam about the Japan Open experience from this year, and Jeff Panis did a great video on it, and they're talking about the bus that Kozo Shimbo picked you up in, and the orange bus that was a refurbished Innova bus. That was the original van that you used to bring the AVRs hot and piping straight from the factory to La Mirada. And this gets into talking about your young test pilots like Leva and Sam, and who else were some of the young ring rats that were there?
The Molnars, Brignoni, I don't know, most of them are working for it. Rob Wilson, he wasn't as young as those guys, but yeah, of all the kids at La Mirada, I was basically coaching all those kids. Sam was one of those kids. Leva was another one.
Well, they learned their lessons well from you, that's for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Valencia, there's another one.
Steve, yeah, we're gonna have him on.
He was a phenom. I didn't coach Valencia. He was a natural. He was just crazy. He could throw either hand, and it didn't seem to matter which hand he was throwing with. And played softball. I could throw with either hand, and he was a phenom, a real phenom. Not that bright. Nice kid.
We're going to talk to him at the end of the month.
Go ahead and ask.
Okay, so since not very many people get the opportunity to ask you this question, and as someone who's had the rare opportunity to stand and talk to you for hours a few years, lots of years back, in fact, while you were molding discs, and then also I've been to some Innova nights that you guys used to do at the World Championships, and I specifically remember when you talked about that Rancho rock mold that you had. You told that at that Innova night that you probably had about $40,000 in that mold alone. The question I want to ask you about that is that you might not hear all this, but I hear it all the time from enthusiasts and collectors and stuff like that. They're like, well, that's not the first run mold of the Destroyer, or that's not the first run mold of the Rock. So there's a lot of people out there that think you have molds that are, $40,000 molds or whatever, sitting on a shelf just waiting to make this next run whenever you get the inkling. But can you explain a little bit about how that all works?
Making molds and
the fact that there's a Destroyer mold, there's a variety of different, there's a race mold, an AVR mold, a rock mold. There's not 7 or 8 of them that you're just keeping because you don't want us to have the best discs available. It's some sort of a mad science.
I don't
sort of a method.
think that. Okay, so basically, to make a disc, our disc anyway, that's not the way it was at first. The way it was at first is there was like three pieces of a mold, like the Arrow mold or the Eagle mold, and it was like one unit here, a core, a stripper, and a cavity, and you inject plastic in it, open it up, disc can fall out, and whatever. We changed that. We didn't. We wanted to be able to. We didn't want to have to make one disc for one mold because that's very expensive. So we started a mold base, and then we put jackets in the mold base, and the jackets are basically a core piece, a stripper ring, and a cavity. And the mold, the base goes, the core goes into this base part, and the stripper part goes into that page. So you take those 3 pieces out, which was a lot less expensive, still expensive, but a lot less expensive than making the whole thing, especially when we started making them out of steel. The aluminum molds, cheaper, lighter, conduct heat better, but they don't last very long. They start hobbing, and the metal starts bending, and you might get, if you're really lucky, you might get 100,000 shots out of a aluminum mold. The original Eagle Arrow mold, it was just one mold that was retooled, got retooled later into the Phoenix.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
which, Sam Ferris set the world record with. And I taught him how to throw that, by the way. Yeah, they call that Swedish Anheuser. It's Dave Dunipace Anheuser. And I forget who the Swedish guy was that was there at the tournament watching Sam do it. He's smart, he picked it up, and all the Swedes started doing that. And they were really good drivers. The Swedes at the time, they were the best drivers in the world. Couldn't putt worth crap, but they were really good drivers.
Was that Pal Brostrom?
Who?
Pal Brostrom?
I don't think that's the name. Sam probably knows who it is. I don't know. Anyway, so we switched to steel molds, and if you were to make a mold in steel for one disc, it would cost around $35,000.
Wow.
But if you're making a base, a mold base, steel mold base, it was by itself was $18,000. We got the cost down afterwards when we didn't go through an intermediary who wanted to make, $5,000 in mold base. We finally learned. Slow learners.
Yeah.
But the jackets, like a core, is about $7,500, and then a cavity is like 65, and a stripper is like 35. So it's still expensive, but they last for a long time if you take care of them. You don't do stupid stuff with them. Supposedly you can get 1 million shots out of them. I don't think that's true, but that's what they say. So we started with the original, was it XD?
Yeah.
Oh, Aviar. The Aviar was the first steel mold.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And it was a 2-cavity mold. I thought we'd be, a little more economical and do a two-cavity mold. No big deal. It was a big deal. It was really hard to control a 2-cavity mold and keep them even. The injection even, you had, thermocouples and all the rest of the stuff, but it didn't quite do it. So you're making rejects all the time and not killing it. The reason for having a 2-cavity mold is because you make 2 discs at a time. But if only one of those are good, then you're just wasting material and stuff like that. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So we still have that 2-cavity mold base, and we never use it. It's just a paperweight, a really heavy paperweight.
Really heavy.
And we did the same thing with our mini mold. The first one was 4-cavity mini mold. That sucked. And we went to a 2-cavity. It's got to be easy enough to do. They're only little 4-inch guys, and no, especially when we wanted to fill them or make it heavier or use urethane type material to make them. It's like, no, need a single cavity. It's a science. It's kind of an art too, to doing injection molding, especially with more exotic materials like urethane. With DX, it's not that hard at all. It's a pretty easy material to work with. But once you start getting into the more engineering plastics, you need a lot of control. You have to build the mold right. Otherwise, you're going to have headaches, and the temperatures and the pressures and the speeds and the different settings that it's a whole bunch that goes into it. Even the color that you put into it might change the parameters of the molding itself. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated.
So many different vectors involved with all that, right?
All kind of stuff like that. And here's the thing, with even with the base plastics, even with the DX plastics, the stuff they send you is not always the same as the stuff they sent you before. So now you got to start all over. With the urethanes, the batches, they will guarantee homogeneity within a batch. Nothing to do with the next batch.
Right.
So we would order plastics, we get a truckload of plastic at a time, and it may have 3 different batches. And So yeah, so just adds to the complexity. How come intimate discs are not exactly the same every single time? Because that's why. It's not like we're not trying, we're doing our best, but when the plastic keeps changing and there's all those different parameters, is it 40 degrees out in the warehouse, or is it 110?
That changes, right?
Well, and you told me humidity was a factor as well.
Humidity is a big factor for a urethane, not for DX. DX doesn't care. It's not hygroscopic. That's what the term is for the urethane stuff. It soaks up moisture in the air. So you have to dry the plastic, right? But, and you put it in the hopper, but by the time it runs through, it could get moisture in it. But so the last couple of shots of that batch that you put in there wouldn't be the same as the first couple of shots, which would be drier than that. Now you could put a kind of a drier unit on the hopper, and it might be better for that. But we just use smaller batches, Okay. So we got a hopper, I don't know how many cubic feet it has, but we'd end up putting maybe 2 cubic feet in there to make sure it was more. It would stay the same as far as the humidity goes. There was sifting too. When you have different materials, heavy materials to make disc heavy, normal, you know what I mean? If you put in a type of urethane in a AVR, I guess you could make 150 something gram AVRs or something like that. And you had to weight it up. And then when you get to destroyers and things like that, you got to weight it down. It's just the opposite. But
Really?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's not just one material. You have to. Sometimes you're putting 4 different materials in a mix.
Wow.
And then again, if you're using larger batches, you have sifting. So you have the moisture problem and the sifting problem. So it's best to put in little batches, and that's it's a pain in the butt, but you got to do that to get the best product.
So years ago, I think in the late 90s, maybe 97, 98, Sullivan was selling the contents of one of his storage lockers. And I bought it. I had to buy it all lock, stock, and barrel. I just wanted to buy like the choice selections, but he said, no, you got to buy everything. And I found this big box of this strange lightweight disc, looked like an AVR, but it said Mirage.
Oh,
What's the story of the Mirage?
Well, a Mirage was a lightweight packaged AVR that we had intended to sell to big box stores like Walmart, stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't think it ever took off, but we also made a 130 gram model AVR, and that did sell.
Okay.
And maybe still selling today, but 130 gram AVR, especially in those days, is a really good disc. It's got good torque resistance. It's got good carry and good speed. It's not a bad disc at all, unless you're in a big wind or something like that. And wind, incidentally, a little wacky fact, was the reason why I came up with the innovative design in the first place. Is because playing with whammos in the wind was really difficult.
Okay.
Right next to impossible.
Yeah, well, I lost a 40 mold out in Lake Michigan one time, throwing it, on a hyzer. It just, it's gone. It was really, really tough playing in the wind, especially anything above 20 miles an hour. That was. Yeah, good luck with that. I won a tournament in I don't know when it was, 78 or something like that at Hunker Beach when there was a 25 mile an hour wind constantly. I was the only one under par because I knew how to putt upside down. Yeah, the other guys putting right side up and the thing's just flying away and they had no chance. So it's little wacky facts.
So one of the things that occurred to me was maybe because you were the distance champion and you were always the guy when any of the overall tournaments, they see Dunipace striding on the field. They know they're going to be basically playing for second place in the distance. Did you invent the beveled edge just so you could have a better distance edge?
No, as a matter of fact, it's like the opposite. I was the best driver in the world with whammo. As soon as we came out with our disc, boy, it took my level down. It took everybody else's level up and took my level down. So now I'm competing more or less on an even footing with hundreds of people. You know, it's like, because the problem with whammos is basically off-axis torque. They are not torque resistant at all. You know, the heavier disc, the heavier the whammo disc is, the more torque resistant it is. And that's true of any disc, right? But you know, those discs, okay, so I won the US Open with a 200 gram 71 mold, right?
Wow.
200 gram 71 mold. Now, not sure how many people can throw 200 grams. You know, I had no problem at all, but I also had a very clean throw, you know, so I had a monster disc with a very clean throw, and I was a big guy, you know, so I had a tremendous advantage. And I believe that was the last year I had an advantage because, you know, that was in '83, I think. And so we came out with our disc, and all these guys who, you know, were not competition for me became competition for me, especially the ones who could putt better than me. And that was a considerable number of guys, you know. Yeah, so I really didn't have much of a chance after that. You know, I still had a good shot in '85, I guess, when Harold won. But I broke my ring finger on my throwing hand the day before competition. So I ended up in 8th place with a broken finger. And Harold and I won the doubles anyway. So, you know, that was pretty much my last shot in '85. That's it. I've sucked ever since.
Well, listen, Dave, we don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know this has just been a fantastic moment here. Really,
For us, for sure.
Privilege and a pleasure. And you got some your business to get to, so we don't want to take up any more of your time. But hopefully, we've convinced you to be able to maybe come back for a full-length show later.
Sure, as long as we have beer.
All right. Well, that's, yeah, and it really. Thanks for, you know, I know that you weren't that interested in doing this, but then you became interested, and we really appreciate that. And as someone who's been here for all of these, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Can we get a selfie here, Dave?
Pardon?
You want
to? Yeah, I really appreciate y'all. All the fuel y'all have put in the tank.
I don't mind doing this stuff at all. You know, it's the having an audience right there. Yeah, I'm not good with that at all. You know, it's
right on. That's not a problem, man. We can definitely accommodate, and we would definitely love to talk to you some more because
there's a heck ton more to talk about.
Well, there's a lot of Paul's already done a lot of research, but there's also just a lot of questions that you know, obviously you're in the unique position to answer. So thank you so much for taking some of your time, and
thank you, Dave.
Thanks for making the trip, and have a great day out there, man.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be cool. All right, everybody. Have a great day. We'll be back on here in another hour or so with the live show from the stage. And this is day 4 of USDGC 2023.
Checking out from the yard.
Have a good one.